We're attempting to build a DIY furnace that can reach 3200 degrees Fahrenheit, which can even melt titanium. Common smelting furnaces can only heat to about 2200 F and are great for melting gold, silver, or copper, but are meaningless for metals like nickel, iron, and the ultimate challenger, titanium. So let's start discussing why the average kiln can't get this hot and how we plan to engineer around it. Insulation is perhaps the most obvious thing to consider when building a furnace because you want to trap the heat inside. The problem is that not only do we need to find a good insulator, like this foam for example used to insulate our homes, we also need the material to survive the high temperatures. Again, this styrofoam is a great insulator, but at 600 degrees Fahrenheit, it totally disintegrates. Insulation in the common furnace is made of IFB, a material rated to 2600 Fahrenheit. But if we use that in our experiment furnace trying to go to 3200 degrees Fahrenheit, we're going to melt it and have a catastrophic failure. Instead, I went out and got aluminum oxide blocks, which not only survive upwards of 3800 degrees Fahrenheit, but also insulate extremely well. Now you can see that I already tried to assemble a furnace, but when I fired it up, it wouldn't go over 2600. Why? Well, when you touch the outside of your furnace, it gets very hot, so clearly heat is lost to the environment. To combat this, I have to add another layer of fire brick to help trap the heat inside. These are only rated to 3200 F, which is fine because they're not directly exposed to the heat. I chose this because it's much cheaper than alumina. Moving on, the furnace can only get as hot as the heating elements, but the heating elements in the common furnace are made of materials like nichrome, which will melt at the temperatures we're going to. So in industry, they use silicon carbide for heating elements in furnaces that go up to 2600 Fahrenheit. But the most impressive heating element, which is what I'm using, is molybdenum disilicide, which is actually a ceramic and is capable of heating up to 3400 Fahrenheit without a problem. These are relatively affordable, so I bought 6 and installed them from the top. I decided to connect them in series using nickel-coated electrical cable to avoid copper oxidation because I anticipate this will get really hot being in direct contact with these heating elements. Great! We have everything we need to heat up our furnace to 3200 Fahrenheit, but how do we know the temperature inside? We need a thermocouple. Now, your common K-type thermocouple will melt at the temperatures that we're going to. Instead, I'm using an S-type thermocouple covered with a ceramic sheath to prevent oxidation at these extreme temperatures. So let's fire this up. When I tried to roll my car near the ventilation, my fire bricks fell and got damaged. I don't know how these bricks might crack over time due to the heat, and I'm very afraid that this furnace will fall apart at extreme temperatures, so we have to pause for a second and make a welded metal case around the entire furnace for safety. It just seems like a good idea. Step 1, design panels. Step 2, laser cut the parts on my X-Tool metal fab. I used to wait weeks to get laser cut parts, so having this beast in my shop is super convenient. Lastly, I assemble these around the furnace and I want to weld them together. So back to the metal fab, I quickly pull off the cutting head, which turns into a laser welder. I designed these walls a tad longer for better laser welding. Alright, the main frame is done and should work. In terms of closing the front, I'll just manually place these 2 alumina blocks here and we should be ready to go. To read the temperature, I'm using this PID temperature controller that I have lying around because it can work with an S-type thermocouple. To power up the heating elements, I'm using this 200 amp variable power supply. It takes in 220 volts and outputs up to 30 volts DC. And we can see the temperature going up. Alright, I'm stopping out of fear that if things go wrong, I'm not prepared. So first, I'm getting 2 fire extinguishers. Second, I don't like my electronics all exposed in case of a failure, so I'm back to my metal fab to make a quick metal enclosure. I do like that I don't have to wait for these parts to be made by a fab shop, but what's more valuable to me is literally this. I made a mistake with sizing and my part is too small. This absolutely killed me in my DIY ultra-high vacuum furnace video because I went through 7 iterations and had to wait 3 to 4 weeks each time for new parts to arrive. This time, I cut a new part in 2 minutes and I was back on track for welding. I wasn't sure if laser welding would work on 1mm thick steel, but the weld turned out surprisingly good for how fast it was. Let's get this show started. Our first contender is nickel with a melting temperature of 2650 Fahrenheit. Then we have iron at 2800 Fahrenheit and our ultimate challenger, titanium at 3034. I'm putting titanium in first, then iron, and lastly nickel. Now, I close the furnace with my first layer of aluminum oxide, followed by the second big insulating block. But, ooh, I forgot that I needed to make a lock so it won't fall. Luckily, this was again easy to laser cut on the X tool, followed by welding of the mounting posts, and voila, we have a locked door and we are officially ready to get fired up. So we power up the furnace and it took about 2.5 hours to reach 1600 Celsius. Here's our DIY box furnace glowing at almost 2900 degrees Fahrenheit. That's almost 1600 degrees Celsius. This is way hotter than most DIY box furnaces that you're gonna find on YouTube. So the furnace tapered off at 1600 C, which forced us to stop. When I opened it up, I noticed that the nickel foil was not melted. I believe this is because it was thin, so the oxide layer on the surface prevented drooping. We clearly got hot enough to melt it though, because the iron completely melted, and the titanium, not surprisingly, turned into titanium oxide and has the consistency of Doritos now. So let's start our final run. First, we add argon gas to prevent oxidation, which interfered with our melting. We do this by piping gas through a ceramic tube into a dome, and I'm using argon from my welder setup. Next, we use much larger chunks of the metals, which are also labeled nicely. I'll put them in these small crucibles and place them in a larger alumina crucible, which will be covered by the argon dome. Lastly, we throw additional insulation where we witness the cracks in the furnace and we ramp it all back up. So our heating has tapered significantly here, again at around 1600 degrees Celsius. What I'm gonna do in order to not lose this run is on the fly try to modify the heating element arrangement so that we run one less heating element and that extra power could be dissipated amongst the other heating elements, which will drive up their temperatures. It should drive up the temperature in the furnace, but it could also lead to catastrophic failure. Let's give it a try at this point, see what happens. This indeed worked and got us up to 1660 degrees Celsius, just 8 degrees shy from the titanium melting point. This is a very productive moment for me. In fact, we got so hot that we seemingly sintered the alumina crucible together. Look at how deformed that is. After lots of thinking, I decided that the hammer is the only reasonable way forward. I'm honestly shocked to see that these silicon carbide crucibles are deformed and glued to each other. Inside, we can see nickel melted beautifully with no oxidation. Iron also melted fully and cleanly, but titanium, we were just 8 degrees off from its melting point. We can see that it started melting on its hottest side. We're not done trying to melt titanium, and we will be back with a smaller and better furnace design. Subscribe now and stay tuned.